Not so long ago, many scientists believed that the brain did not change after childhood, that it was hardwired and fixed by the time we became adults. But recent advances in only the last decade now tell us that this is simply not true. The brain can and does change throughout our lives. It is adaptable, like plastic. Hence, neuroscientists call this neuroplasticity. How does neuroplasticity work? If you think of your brain as a dynamic, connected power grid, there are billions of pathways or roads lighting up every time you think, feel, or do something. Some of these roads are well-travelled. These are our habits, our established ways of thinking, feeling, and doing. Every time we think in a certain way, practice a particular task, or feel a specific emotion, we strengthen this road. It becomes easier for our brains to travel this pathway. Say we think about something differently, learn a new task, or choose a different emotion. We start carving out a new road. If we keep travelling that road, our brains begin to use this pathway more, and this new way of thinking, feeling, or doing becomes second nature. The old pathway gets used less and weakens. This process of rewiring your brain by forming new connections and weakening old ones is neuroplasticity in action. The good news is that we all have the ability to learn and change by rewiring our brains. If you have ever changed a bad habit or thought about something differently, you have carved a new pathway in your brain and experienced neuroplasticity firsthand. With repeated and directed attention towards your desired change, you can rewire your brain.
School systems is actually teaching people to be poor. The school system will never teach you about money. The school system was designed to teach you to be an employee or a doctor or a lawyer, a specialist, but never about money. My father was the head of education, PhD, all that stuff. I go home and ask him, I said, why don't we learn about money in school? And he looked at me and says, because the government doesn't let us teach that subject. The government tells us what we can teach and what we can't teach. And I thought that was strange. And I said, but aren't we going to school to learn about money? He says, no, your job is to get a job. Poverty is passed on. It's taught in your families. And middle class is taught in families. And so the people right now who are sitting at home, who are struggling financially or worried about money or unhappy, they may be making a lot of money, but unhappy with what they're doing, it was probably taught to you. You know, your superego was taught, get a job, work hard, or you'll never be rich, or the rich are evil, or whatever.
And until you change your mindset,
Correct.
Money won't help you, right?
Correct.
And we see that with people that win the lottery, people that make more money, they still have the same problem.
Right.
Because they have that poor man's soul.
Right. If you're poor, you'll always be poor.
That's really hard for people to understand.
Yeah, the money will disappear that fast. Just like most pro athletes, they make millions of dollars, and 65% are bankrupt 5 years later. It's because they come from poor families. Now you tell them that, they get very angry at you. It's not, it's the rich fault. It's you guys ripped me off and government ripped me off. But unfortunately, what Mr. Lipton was saying, it's passed down genetically. The moment I pay you, you think like an employee. That's the trap. Entrepreneurs work for free. The moment you accept the paycheck, your brain goes dead. As long as you're hungry, you'll think. You see people say, well, why don't you give the poor money? So the only problem with that is it just creates more poor people.
Give a man a fish, he fishes for the day, or eats for the day.
Yeah, you give a man a fish, you get a lot of people who want more fish, but you teach them to fish.
But you are the Robin Hood of knowledge, because I see you giving this knowledge out, and do the rich people cringe and say, don't tell them that, Robin?
Yes. Don't tell people what you know.
Right.
Keep them poor. Poor will always be amongst us, because it starts up here. It's in their words, and the words become flesh. When they say, I can't afford it, or I can't do that, they go down. They become what they say. And I meet so many people, I can't afford it. You think I'm made of money? My PhD dad, he says, what do you think I am, made of money? I can't afford that. And my rich dad would say, that's why he's poor. Poor people say, I can't afford it, I can't do that, I don't have time. Because it's an escape. It's an escape, It's easy to say I can't afford it. Oh, I'm too tired. Oh, I can't go to the gym. You know, when you could go to the gym, but no, I can't. Truth is, I'm just too lazy to go to the gym.
And you play it safe and you don't introduce new risks into your life. And so
I have job security.
Right. And your rich dad used to say what instead of I can't afford it?
How can I afford it? How can I do that? You know, what would it take? Or why should I do that? A question opens the mind, a statement closes the mind. See, when you say I can't afford it, your mind shuts down and you become what you say. You know, people say, well, money is not that important to me. Then if money is not that important to you, money is not important to you. I mean, you know what I mean? I don't care about money. The money doesn't care about you. You know, the word does become flesh. Or I'll never be rich. Or the favorite one is the rich are greedy. It's the poor that are greedy. You know, if you think about it, because to be rich, you have to give something. You know, I have to produce books and games, and I purchase real estate, I provide housing, provide jobs and all that. That's why I'm rich. But greedy people produce nothing. Oh no, it's the rich that are greedy. And I'm going, hey, sports fans, you know, you point a finger forward, 3 are pointing backwards. And so as we know, there's a big attitude problem against the rich today. We all have fear. You know, to be truthful, we all have fear. It's just how you deal with it. You know, Einstein said, you know, imagination is more important than knowledge, but knowledge empowers imagination. And what most people lack is real business knowledge, like accounting, you know, like debt, like taxes. You got to know that stuff, but they don't teach it in school to anybody. You know, people who are afraid of making mistakes like they teach in school, they don't ever grow. Because spirituality is there's good and there's bad, there's right and there's wrong, there's up and there's down. Most people only want to be right, they only want to be positive. Well, you can't have that, that's not reality. Every time I failed, it was like, good, I said, okay, what have I learned? And the average person, the reason they're poor is they haven't failed. You know, they play it so safe, they haven't made any mistakes like they taught in school, that means they don't learn anything. That's why the school system's actually fundamentally corrupt. It's anti-education. And I think what most people do is they let their parents or their friends talk them out of life. So afraid of failing. But failing is how we succeed. Our schools punish you for making mistakes. And that's why we have so many people who are so afraid of admitting they make mistakes or afraid of failing.
Exercise 1. Lifelong learning is a concept that has slowly become mainstream, and for a good reason. Not only does the world evolve fast and there are constantly interesting new things to learn, from a brain's perspective, it's the perfect workout. So start studying again. It can be to specialize yourself further in your professional field, or just explore a subject you've always been passionate about. The reason why really doesn't matter. It's the studying itself that counts. Exercise 2. When talking about learning a new language is phenomenal from a brain's perspective. Did you always have a sweet spot for Italian or French? Or you're thinking business and you see a lot of potential in Chinese or Japanese? Whatever the language, whatever the reason, it's always a good idea to learn a new one. A great variation is to learn sign language and even Braille, as it will develop your tactile sense. Learning to make distinctions and associations with your fingers, such as between 2 dots and 3 dots, activates a whole new set of pathways linking the cognitive regions of our cortex to the sensory regions. Exercise 3. Learning doesn't always have to be set in a formal setting. Everything can be turned into a learning experience. Speaking with people about their passion or hobbies is a great way to get a short introduction into fascinating topics. They will be glad to share what they know and probably even grateful to be given the opportunity to talk about that thing that animates them so much. On a personal note, I love to see people become passionate about something. You know, their whole body language changes. It's like you discover a whole new person. Exercise 4. Ever since humanity invented writing, we've been able to grow our knowledge base in a much more sustainable and reliable way than we would be able to with only our memory. That leaves us today with an ever-growing source of knowledge we can tap into, and we should. In this exercise, I'm asking you to read a non-fiction book. Read it in such a way that you learn something about it. Keep a small notepad by the hand while reading, so you can keep notes, or you can underline your favorite passages straight in the book itself. It can be something for your work or hobby, it really doesn't matter. The objective is learning something new. If you have no specific wish list, just Google something like 5 best books to read on, and then fill in a subject that you're interested in. You'll see, there's plenty of choice. Exercise 5. This exercise you might already have done when you were a teenager. Can you guess what it is? No, it's not squeezing pimples, nor binge-watching Friends or The Simpsons. I'm talking about keeping a diary. You know, dear diary, today I did this and that, and it felt amazing, or miserable, or confusing, or all those at the same time. Keeping a diary is being used in many therapeutic approaches. It helps us stay in touch with our emotions, and through its reflective nature, makes us more conscious about the things we do and feel. It's a great way to listen to ourselves and stay in tune with the world around us. Exercise 6. So we are creatures of habits, and even though these habits had a vital role to play in our evolutionary terms, as they kept us safe, they also represent the force of inertia that keeps us from growing and evolving. So in this exercise, I challenge you to break out of our tiny audiovisual habits. Watch a new TV channel, subscribe to a new YouTube star, and switch to another radio station for a couple of days. It will get you out of your routine and listen to opinions and ideas you're usually not confronted with. Exercise 7. This exercise you're already doing right now. So you can already put a check mark next to it. Yes, it's taking an online course. You see, being it on YouTube or on another platform, massive open online courses, also called MOOCs, have democratized education. Now anybody, anywhere can follow university-level courses for a fraction of its price, and often even for free. Exercise 8. There's this old saying where I come from, that you never get a straight answer from a Jesuit. The reason behind it is that these men of God have learned to communicate by asking questions. When you ask them a question, they answer with a question. So this is your exercise. Be like a Jesuit. For one day, only ask questions. You'll see, in the beginning it's really hard. Once you get the hang of it, it becomes really fun. And it has the added advantage that you let the other person do the most part of the talking. They will for sure see you as a great listener, even though you'll probably just be preparing your next question. Exercise 9. This exercise is a great brain workout and one you've probably already played as a kid. It's the neither yes or no game. You know, that game where the first one to say yes or no loses the game. By playing it, we realize how hard it is to filter what we say. Specifically those very common little words like yes or no that flip out of our mouth without us even realizing it anymore. Exercise 10. This exercise is about associations. This is actually a memory trick. The weirder and more extreme the association, the easier it is to remember the item associated with. So whenever you need to remember something, being it an item on your grocery list or the name of a person you just met, make up some weird, crazy association in your head. Make it as vivid and real as possible. Add movement, colors, sounds and smells. Try to use as many of your senses and I promise you'll remember whatever it is you need to remember. So let's say you need to remember to buy eggs. Picture, let's say, an elephant going to the grocery store where you have to buy the eggs. Picture him going through the aisles while people run away screaming in pure terror. Let him open the box of eggs and touch them softly, smell them, and then go to the exit, paying for them. Add as many sensations as possible. I don't know, have him fly away like Dumbo, or have this bright light coming out of the box of eggs. Anything goes, as long as it's extreme by all means. And the bonus exercise. For this exercise, I'll ask you to waken the Edgar Allan Poe or William Shakespeare that sleeps somewhere inside you. Yes, I'm asking you to write a poem. It can be a love poem, or one about nature, or your city, on friendship, or just something abstract. It can rhyme or not. You can go for the limerick or something unstructured. Doesn't really matter. Have fun with it.